Byron Buxton gets hurt. The Twins add an all-star, and Matt Larsen on why NDSU opted into the House settlement. A busy Thursday Hot Mic starts now.
Hot Mic with Dom Izzo.
Really? Really, Dom?
No. I like what Dom's doing.
Okay.
Dom Izzo.
Jeez, come on, Dom. What do you think I am, a magician?
Yeah, I'm fired up, Dom. What else could I say?
Absolutely. It was great to get on the field, and then Dom came up to me, and I'm trying to walk away from me. I just wanted to enjoy myself out there.
Hot Mic.
Great job.
There's got to be some kind of intelligent question about something.
Coach Dom Izzo, WDAY in Fargo, North Dakota.
Can you give me a layup or something?
Hot Mic. Presented by Northwestern Mutual.
That program is second to none.
On the networks of WDAY.
You know, if it's not about sports, I find it very hard to concentrate.
Here's Dom Izzo.
Good Thursday morning. Welcome to the We Can Never Really Have Nice Things edition of Hot Mic on WDAY Extra. KSFL, good morning in Sioux Falls. KNBN in Rapid City and Inforum.com. Happy Thursday, everybody. Already on the back half of the week, July the 10th. Ready to rock and roll. Fun show planned for us today. As you heard in our show tease, we're going to not cap this conversation, but I think today is, I guess, the bookend of a conversation we started about probably about 2 years ago. And not necessarily wrapping up, but Matt Larsen will join us later in the hour to probably put a finer point on the Bison opting in, what it means, and now that we're a week plus in, what has changed, what's happened, how this changes everything going forward. We're going to try and explain it in a way that for people that don't care, have heard it, like, what is this? That's what my goal is for our conversation with Matt coming up later on in our show this morning. That's my goal. If we can do that, then we feel like we've done a good job here today. We got a lot to get to. As I believe I heard this morning, 2 days from now, the Los Angeles Chargers rookies report to camp. So if you thought I was exaggerating that summer was over, I present that information to you, that NFL teams are starting training camps this weekend, which means it's here, that we're not that far away from actual preseason games and the like of that. So if you needed another reminder on top of the Big 12 holding its media days earlier this week, you have that reminder. Heck, I just was planning out yesterday our coverage for Missouri Valley Football Conference Media Day coming up in about 11 days. So it's here, folks, whether you like to admit it or not, and go enjoy. It's going to be a warm, sticky kind of summery day today, but with that in the back of your mind that everything is coming. I mentioned we really never can have any nice things editions, and I know that's such a Minnesota thing to say to start the show, Minnesota sports fan thing to start our show, but there was a 15-minute stretch for Twins fans last night that totally typified what it is to be a Minnesota sports fan, because you had the news prior to the game last night with the Cubs, which we're going to show you another really nice Twins victory here in a minute over a first-place team, that Joe Ryan was named to the American League All-Star team, replacing Houston Astros pitcher Hunter Brown, which we talked about for the last couple of weeks leading up to this, that Ryan had earned it, but with the Twins' record, likely they're not going to get two. They will. But tempered with the fact of then the game starts and Byron Buxton's had an all-star year. He's going to the home run derby, and he got hurt last night. Bottom of the first inning, leading off the game. Inside pitch from, who is this guy? Cade Horton? I don't even know who was pitching for Chicago last night. And initially, they thought that it hit the bat, and when she knew the trainer was coming out, that is bad news. Why? I mean, this is clear. I don't know what the umpire's looking at. That's clearly off his hand. And that replay, both of them here, I mean, that is directly on the left hand. There's no there's some padding there, as you can see, but once the flexing began, I'm sure for most Twins, I mean, look at Matt Wallner's face. Wallner is grimacing as he watches the replay of it. Buxton stayed in the game, took his base, but left after the first inning. Twins say he's got a contusion. We'll get more on that in a minute. He came around to score on this Ryan Jeffers base hit to left, and for the second game in a row, and for the fourth time basically in the last 5, the Twins are scoring runs early. Carlos Correa adds to it with a double to the opposite field. Jeffers, this is some of the best running, maybe, question mark, you'll see, as he barely beats out the throw at home. Twins are off to a 2-0 lead. That was maybe not the most elegant slide, but he got there. Wallner unloads. When he hits the baseball, we talked about this over the last couple of years, it goes far. That's a 390-foot shot out to the patio area there at right field. Twins are out to a 3-0 lead through the first 2 innings. The Cubs, though, would crawl their way back into this game. Dansby Swanson reaches on the infield hit. Kyle Tucker would score, get the Cubs on the board, and make it a 3-1 game. Nico Horner next up. He grounds into the fielder's choice. That's going to score another run. Seiya Suzuki comes in. Now it's a 3-2. Chicago trailing Minnesota in the fourth. Twins would add a run. Duran would come in. Twins bullpen was good. He gets the final out of the game. Minnesota Twins have put together some nice games here, folks. They've won 4 of 5. 4-2 win last night. David Festa goes 5 1/3, allows 3 hits and 2 runs to pick up the victory. Kalum, Stewart, Varland, and Duran worked the final 3+ innings of relief to get Minnesota its 45th win of the season. 2 games now under 500. Wallner with a couple of hits, Correa as well. Correa's batting average now up to 263, but obviously the big story out of the game was the injury to Buxton, because with all the news that started at the top of the beginning of the week, the fact that named an all-star, he's going to participate in the home run derby. Now all of that is up in the air, and we may be making way much out of nothing, but anytime that this guy gets hurt is you worry. And again, that is directly on. Now, Baldelli said after the game, imaging done during the game on Buxton's hand came back, quote, all right. Obviously, Buck coming out of the game is not what you're looking for. It looks like he's going to be okay. He was pretty sore, though, so we'll see. And next week is an exhibition, and you want him to play. He obviously wants to be there back in his home state of Georgia, but this is beyond that. For whatever you think that this season is going to be, he is the centerpiece of it. That was a 98-mile-per-hour fastball off the left hand. I mean, the fact that it's not broke is amazing, because we've seen him take one and break fingers on getting beamed. That's just those high and tight pitches. It's just so hard to get out of the way. He left the clubhouse with a cup in his right hand and a wrap on his left. He said, "We're good. We'll be fine." Only at bat of the game, Brooks Lee came in and replaced him after that. Of course, they ruled it a foul ball. I don't know what they're looking at there. The Twins challenged it, and obviously they reversed it, and Buxton got sent to first. He then stole a base with the injury, quote-unquote, but hopefully it's nothing more than, they say it's a contusion, which that sounds awfully painful, but to grab a bat, that, I'm not a great doctoral mind, but that certainly sounds like it would not be pleasant to do. So we'll see. Twins obviously play a day game today to wrap up this. Now they're going for a sweep. They had a chance to sweep Tampa, lost that game in extra innings. Today, a chance to sweep the first-place team in the National League Central and the Cubs. Chris Paddock, how many more starts does he have? Paddock's a free agent. if the Twins are if they can get anything for him, you have to imagine that he's expendable. 3-7 with an ERA north of 4.5. Colin Ray will go for Chicago. He's been good for the Cubs. 6-3 mark with an ERA just over 4. That's the matchup today at Target Field, just afternoon. There's nothing better in the middle of the summer than day baseball. I would argue that is fantastic. With nothing else happening, why not? There's a baseball game going on today with two teams that are obviously big in our area. Let's go. Now, I mentioned the other big news around the Twins centered on Joe Ryan, who found out yesterday that he was named to the American League All-Star team for the first time. And Ryan has been the Twins' ace this season. And remember, he came over in that trade, 4 years ago now, with Tampa, that they sent Nelson Cruz to the Rays. And, I am the first to lament some of the Twins trades. That one worked out. Ryan is 8-4, ERA of 2.76, 116 strikeouts and 104 innings. He's been great. He earned this. The Twins' record is not reflective of getting multiple All-Stars, but he's been pretty darn good. And then the news came down yesterday to add to it that there has been a change in the rotation for the Twins and the Pirates. So tomorrow night at Target Field, and I know our guy Brad Anderson, I think, messaged on social media yesterday, he's going to be at Target Field tomorrow. Joe Ryan will go against Paul Skeens tomorrow to open up that series against the Pirates. Skeens, of course, is the best pitcher. You could argue maybe the best pitcher in baseball right now. He pitches for a team that can't score any runs for him. So you got Ryan versus Skeens. Normally, Twins-Pirates isn't necessarily headline material, but that's pretty darn good. That's okay for us in the middle of the summer to get excited about that one. Now, what does that mean for them pitching in the All-Star game? I mean, there's a better chance than not. Kyle, you have to look that up for me. Is there a rule now that you have to have a certain amount of days off? Isn't there, to pitch in the All-Star game? But if they're pitching Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that's 3 days rest to at least go an inning for each guy on Tuesday night in Atlanta is probably feasible to have that happen. So that's the temperate of news. You have the Buxton hit by pitch and then the Joe Ryan named to an All-Star. That's kind of how things go in Twins baseball, or Minnesota fan circles is probably the best way to describe that. So we'll see what happens, but finale of that series coming up tomorrow. I am interested, and I believe we'll have Corey back with us tomorrow. I know he's on vacation. I believe he's back on the call tomorrow, of what fans' reaction has been to not having a play-by-play guy on the broadcast for the last couple of days. And I will tell you, as a play-by-play guy myself, I find I miss it, but I'm sure for some fans, they've enjoyed the all-analyst broadcast with Plouffe, Morneau, and Perkins of the last couple of nights. It's different. And you know what? Over the course of 160 games, you have the opportunity to try some different things, especially in baseball. So different than any of the other sports. Certainly football, when you're limited to the amount of games, you have to have that. But with baseball, when you have the excess amount of games that you do, you can open up some windows to do that kind of stuff. All right, well, real quick before we wrap up our first segment. Yesterday, during the day, and the WNBA does this where they have these day games where the kids are able to come out. And actually, there was a really interesting article on The Athletic to say, has the WNBA outgrown this with the amount of attention on the league to not be playing games at noon local? The Lynx will have their game at Target Center next week with that. They're on the road doing it this week. Today they play the Sparks at 2 o'clock Central, which is noon Pacific out in L.A. Yesterday they did it in Phoenix against the Mercury, a team that has scuffled this year, and obviously the Lynx came in with the second-best record in the WNBA. And they had something happen to them yesterday that they haven't all season. They had a terrible fourth quarter. Courtney Williams, who's an all-star, one of just the two, and we can lament all-stars on that, drains this shot to put the Lynx up. They're up 7 in the fourth quarter, and then things start to go haywire where a 7-point lead suddenly became 2. Alyssa Thomas was sensational, ties the game at 69. There, Collier gets to the basket and scores. She had 18 points, put the Lynx up. Now she's turned over here. Thomas goes and gets by Courtney Williams and scores, puts the Mercury up 2 at 73-71. Bridget Carlson, who used to play for the Lynx, knocks down the shot here. This was a crazy finish here. Puts it up 75-71. Then Thomas there for the dagger. Sensational down the stretch. She had 29 points, 12 in the fourth quarter. And the Mercury go on and beat the Lynx 79-71. They only scored 2 baskets, as you see there, over the final 5 and 45 of the game. Thomas had 29 and 8 in 34 minutes. Courtney Williams had 21 for the Lynx, who lose for just the 3rd time all season long. They dropped to 17-3 on the season. They will play, again, as I mentioned today, against the LA Sparks, who are led by Kelsey Plum. Still without Cameron Brink, who was the number 2 pick in last year's draft behind Caitlin Clark, who's been out with an injury. I don't believe she's played a professional game yet. Maybe one. She got hurt last year early in her WNBA career. But that's coming up later today. So we'll see how the Lynx bounce back there. Still the best record, but that was outscored 27-14 in the fourth quarter, as you saw on that graphic down the stretch yesterday. We got a packed show coming up for you here. I mentioned Matt Larsen will join us coming up at 9:35, NDSU Athletic Director, on the House settlement and what the Bison are doing now that they have opted in. Our guy Sam Goetzinger, always neatly dressed, will join us at 10. Sam had some travel issues as well. We're going to lament on air travel. That'll be a fun segment coming up at 10. And I believe we got another guest, yes, just committed to our show here from Minot, North Dakota. Minot North has its first Division I athlete. Cadey Shipman will join us. She's going to play softball for the Bison this upcoming year. She's already playing summer softball this year out in Minot. She'll join us at about 10:30 to chat about her career and now becoming the first North Dakota native to play for the Bison softball team in a while. It's got to be at least maybe a decade. That's coming up at 10:35. So we're looking forward to having Cadey join us. And big deal there. First from Minot North. They've had their doors open for 2 years, and now they have their first D1 athlete, and it's Cadey. So she'll join us at 10:35. Looking forward to that conversation there to wrap up our show. That and a heck of a lot more here on this busy Thursday. We come back. We'll chat some basketball. We got some schedule news on both the Bison and UND, and we're still waiting if the tournament's going to expand. Maybe the longer it goes, maybe it doesn't happen. Hot Mike back after this on WDAY Extra, KSFL, KMBN, and Inforum.com. All right, welcome back, everybody, on a busy, moving Thursday morning show. All right, so look this up on the pitchers deal. This is from MLB.com. It says, our starters who pitched the Sunday before the game allowed to participate. I understand that both Skeens or Ryan are throwing Friday. It says, initially, Sunday starters were deemed ineligible. Then they were allowed to make the decisions themselves, albeit limited to a single inning if they opted to play. Now clubs or players are allowed to make requests for usage accommodation if there are factors such as an IL stint, recent surgery, innings workload, or other reasons that would affect the pitcher's availability. If an accommodation is granted, then the parties agree upon the pitcher's status and workload availability. All right, so if each of these guys pitch tomorrow, then again, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, that's 3 days rest. What do we think, Kyle? That's an inning? 2 innings, maybe, if they can probably throw, right? I'd say everybody wants to see Skeens pitch. There's no way he's not going to pitch in the game. And he wants to pitch. Nobody sees this guy. Unless you're a diehard Pirates fan, they got to throw 2. I think that's minimum. On 3 days rest, Yeah. Now, if it was Saturday when it was initially, then I'd be skeptical about maybe either one going. But with 3 days rest, come on, we can buck up and do that. So that's better news for baseball fans. And honestly, when the All-Star, and I'm going to save this for next week for our All-Star game stuff because we're going to have a little bit more time there. For what the All-Star game was as it is now, this wouldn't even be a conversation if it was 30 years ago. But again, I'll digress on that. We have reached the time of the year when, at least for myself, we're scrambling to find, and teams are starting to release their non-conference basketball schedules. Neither of the Division I schools in North Dakota, not in South Dakota either, because they're still finishing them up, have released their dates yet. We've cobbled together some that we can chat about this morning. Like, we know now for each of the North Dakota State teams, unlike last year when they opened the season at home, they will not be doing that in 25-26. The Bison men on November the 3rd, that's the opening date of the season, will be playing at Oregon State to start 25-26. We know that date. That's been confirmed. Bison men at Oregon State, November the 3rd. That same day, the University of North Dakota will open up the season at Alabama. Now, this is the start of the back end for the Fighting Hawks. This is the deal. If you get Alabama to come to your place, you got to go back there twice. So they are going to face Alabama to open up the new season on November the 3rd. November the 17th, we know Southern Illinois will be coming to play the Bison men at the Shack. That's a good game. That's a Monday night. I know, not ideal, but that's for basketball fans. I've been clamoring for good games for a while. We're sick of seeing, and the Bison are going to have 3 non-D1s. I'm going to tell you that right now. I don't know who yet, but they're going to have 3 non-Division I games on the schedule. So it looks the Dragons game is going to happen as an exhibition. This is really good. You get a Missouri Valley team to come to your barn, you better come. Like last year, Illinois State, that was a good crowd. And obviously there was the attachment with Bowden Skunberg there, but obviously he didn't play in the game. That's pretty darn good. If you're going to get a game, that's what you want. Now, Jory Collins told us when he was on the show back in early June that NDSU has 2 really good non-conference games lined up. You saw there, it's either November the 7th or November the 14th that Tulane is coming to the Shack. And the day that they're not, Gonzaga will be here as well. That's pretty good. That's pretty darn good. That continues a trend of going back to last year with the women's NIT that the Bison had New Mexico State, Washington State, and Troy here last year. Now to have those couple of games is pretty good. Also yesterday, I know the Herald ran this for the UND women. They may have the ultimate bragging rights of anybody. That they're heading to the Virgin Islands in November for the Paradise Jam. They'll play Boise State on November the 27th to tip off that tournament in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The Hawks will open play against Boise State on November the 27th. On November the 28th, they'll take on either Tulane, who we're going to see up here, or Elon as part of the tournament's bracket-style format. So that's pretty good if you get that. We know the Bison women have gone to Reno. They've been in San Diego this past year. I think they went to Charleston, South Carolina. They played the College of Charleston and Charleston Southern down there over Thanksgiving. I assume Jory will have something cooked up there. The Bison men also, I got this confirmed yesterday. They will be playing in a multi-team event over Thanksgiving against Arkansas State and Jacksonville State. That will be in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Remember this past year they were in Sanford, Alabama for an event where they played 3 teams there. They had Sanford, West Georgia, and Utah Valley, if I remember correctly. This may just be those 3 teams. Not sure if there's a 4th, but that's what we know. We don't. The Summit League schedule will come out, I would imagine, It's typically come out either later in July or in August, so we still got to wait for that. But for those trying to piece together a little bit of the non-conference, that's what we know so far on the local schools. We know the Big Sky Summit Challenge has been announced there, so we know those dates already, and we shared those. Heck, those came out in May or early June, I want to say. So we're starting to piece together the non-conference, and it gets harder and harder every year. Like, the Bison beating Butler last year, while great, also means getting that kind of game again, probably going to be really hard to do. The fact they got Oregon State, that's great. I don't know if you're going to have another high major opponent on the North Dakota State men's schedule. Women's teams seem more open to that. I also got this, and if we have, we're going to have time to get into this, and maybe next week we'll do it, because the South Dakota State women, I believe the women are playing a game in Rapid City, which is fantastic, against Montana, which is really cool. Because I know Bison fans are like, oh, they should do that. You know, UND did last year. They played a game out in Bismarck when they played Dickinson State. And obviously there was some local ties there with Trace and Eaglestaff getting a chance to come back home and do that. You know, the man who makes the decisions is joining us next, so we can potentially ask him about that. I don't know where else you would do it to get a good amount of fans to come. Bismarck seems like a good area to go with a perfect arena like the Civic to host a game like that. You would want another Division I team to do it, right? That's what you would sign off on. That would be appealing. We could ask. Let's break. We come back. The man's waiting. NDSU AD Matt Larsen will join us on the decision of the Bison to opt into the House settlement. What's it mean for the Green and Gold Collective? Any other questions you have, let's let them rip. We'll do it when Hot Mike returns after this. Well, welcome back, everybody. Thursday morning show rolls on. Our next guest, I bugged him before he went on vacation. I don't know if he got any rest on vacation, knowing a large decision was looming. And then I went on vacation. Of course, NDSU had to announce that they were going to opt in to the House settlement. And our last time we had Matt Larsen, I was really informative. And now I hope for people they can get just as much information out of him joining us back on the show. Bison Athletic Director joining us this morning with the news that came last Monday that NDSU decided to opt in. I believe, Matt, the number that Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports reported was 319 Division I schools decided to opt in. Is that number, was that higher than you thought when you were visiting with your colleagues about this?
Well, first off, I want to say we always try to announce any big things when you're away.
Appreciate that.
If we can. Yep. You know, I would say the number doesn't surprise me. So that leaves roughly 45, 46 Division I schools that didn't opt in. It doesn't surprise me from the fact that there was again, with a lot of the late information that came out of the final House settlement, there were significant enough pieces that I think similar to us that gave a lot of schools opportunity to reconsider just based off of how it was going to impact them moving forward. And so that's the unfortunate part. I think you did see a lot of people flip, and it's too bad that it happened, kind of at the late hour that it did, because, it's a little bit of a time crunch now, but not surprised. I think a lot of the limitations that are going to be putting on third party and collectives, if folks are looking to do any sort of NIL, I think opting in was really the only direction they could go. When you're looking at it, and I think when you were on with me last month, I don't know if you guys had the FAQ, the FAQ on what it was going to be. When did you actually get it? Oh, let's see. The settlement officially came across June 6th. We got something later, I think the next day, but it wasn't fully complete. We got some more information probably another week or two later. And so with some pretty significant information in there. And then really, and I think what it was too, the first FAQ comes out and then there's a million questions, right? Clarifications. And so then they came out probably with a little more detailed and informative document, which I think helped But in the meantime, we were calling folks from the NCAA, and again, just trying to get as much clarity as possible, because it was a big decision. But ultimately, again, I think based off of all of that information, ended up being the right decision. But it is just a scramble. You're meeting with coaches who, up to that point, thought we were opting out. You're meeting with donors. You're meeting with folks across campus. So and again, you're also on vacation for 8 days. So trying to manage all that stuff, trying to get a new fund through Teammaker set up. So, I mean, all of those things. But, like I said at the press conference last week, fortunate we have an unbelievable team here that just does a really good job of understands kind of our direction and what we're looking to do. So we're able to kind of get it pulled off.
So let's start with the designating of the student athletes. Is that something that you were giving your coaches a heads up? Like, if we're doing this, you need to have your athletes designated by such a date. Was that a conversation that happened beforehand?
Yeah. So that was when I was on vacation. We started figuring, okay, this is most likely at that point, probably 80-90%, we're going to head in the direction of opting in. So I had asked some of our staff back here to meet with our head coaches, kind of educate them on where we think we were going. And then really more, I think it was 5 or 6 programs that we ended up having that have student athletes over what those new roster caps would be. So I had to designate student athletes. So met a lot with them about it, what it meant, how the conversations I have with student athletes, how it impacts them. So we had that. So we had a good probably 2 to 3 week kind of ramp up to be able to put that list together. And ultimately that had to be in last Sunday, July 6th. So got that in and good to go with that.
So now that they are designated, can you describe, for people who don't understand what that means, can you just maybe the best way to describe why they had to be? Obviously, if not, then they would be not cut, but that's what they're
essentially
potentially could be, right?
Yeah. So the original terms of, or at least where the settlement was going, the original proposed terms were that there was going to be these hard roster caps moving forward, and anybody opted in immediately had to get to those roster caps. So you had a lot of schools over the course of that knew they were opting in, mostly Power Fours, that knew they were opting in. So over the course of the spring, we're basically telling student athletes who were over their roster cap that you no longer had a place here at X institution, right? One of the biggest changes to when the settlement was finalized was schools could grandfather in student athletes that were over the cap for a particular sport. And so our case, football, for example, the new cap is 105. We have 128 roughly players on our roster of current NDSU students that are and incoming for this fall. So we were essentially able to designate 23 student athletes that are on this protected list that we can keep here at NDSU above the 105 until they exhaust their eligibility, leave, graduate, etc. So I mean, in one way, it's really good for the student athletes. Again, they can finish out their career at the institution they chose. And it also gives our programs, our coaches, an opportunity. Okay, now we can start to phase in and get to that cap probably 3 to 4 years from now, once all of those designated student athletes have left NDSU.
And when they do leave, Matt, whatever, if they transfer or they graduate, done, then those roster spots don't get filled, correct? That's part of chopping down to get to the 105 in football.
Correct. The only way we could ever add a designated student athlete after we submitted the list on July 6th is if a designated athlete from another school transfers to NDSU, they then immediately go into our designated student athlete list and not our roster cap list. And so that's where it gets convoluted. But really, in theory, by 3 to 4 years from now, there should no longer be any designated student athletes because they all would have exhausted their eligibility at that point.
And the big rush, I think, for teams that probably flipped, I'll say probably, I know you can't speak for anybody but at NDSU, is that the grandfathering in of the rosters, if you decided not to do this and waited till next July, then automatically you had to start cutting players, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, if I waited till July 2nd to opt in, we would have had to get right to the roster caps. And so I think that was probably the bigger thing for a lot of schools, was knowing, because I think a lot that were initially going to opt out most likely probably were going to opt in year 2. Just wanted to see how things happened. a little more of a runway to get things in place. If you had to take NIL in-house, just give you a little more time, kind of read the tea leaves, see what everybody else is doing. But ultimately knew they were going to do it. But I think that when you could grandfather in and then you immediately had to get back to it if you did it a year later, I think that was probably the big decision for most of the schools that I talked to and their reason for flipping to opting in.
All right. Now, the big thing I wanted to ask on is collectives and the future of collectives. In the mid-major level, the ones that have them, do you see them still existing going forward?
I don't. Well, at least I don't in the way that they've operated in the past.
Okay.
And the biggest change there was, and again, everybody, I don't want to say was guilty of it because it makes it sound like they were doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It was an unregulated space, but basically it was a pass through to be able to get money to student athletes. And now the biggest change is there has to be a legitimate business reason for that. And it has to be through a business that is a for-profit business that sells goods or services to the public for profit. So basically, if a collective was just going to do something with a student athlete, it's going to get denied.
Yeah.
And so the viability of collectives, other than if you are truly managing real third-party relationships, which I think some schools are, they're going to have their collective do almost what we're hiring a Learfield NIL person to do, is manage those true third-party deals for student athletes. But the historical, what we've known collectives to be for the last 2.5 years, where they're just doing deals with student athletes directly, those will cease.
Jay Bartley and Kurt Wittich have done an amazing job over the last couple of years. I know you acknowledged that in your press conference last week on the Green and Gold Collective. Is there a window for them to still work with you, or how does it, with that molding into the Green and Gold Fund? Has that been kind of determined yet, and how that's going to work?
Yeah, we've met with them a couple of times, and I told them for us right now, our priorities right now are making sure that we're reaching out to anybody who is a member of the Green and Gold Collective. Currently, we're actually going to send a communication out to all those folks tomorrow, is making sure that they have all the information they need and make as smooth a transition from the Green and Gold Collective over to the Green and Gold Fund, which is now through Team Acres. And there's a lot of information that goes along with that. What is this? What does their historical giving to the collective mean? Is it tax deductible? All of the things that are going to be impactful and important for them to hear as they make their decision. So those are some of the things right off the bat that we're really focusing on. And that's where Kurt and Jay are going to be huge. I mean, they've built relationships with all these folks. We know a lot of these folks, but they've had a little bit more of a relationship with them over the last 2 years. And so that's really the biggest goal for Jay and Kurt, we've asked them is how do we make this transition really smooth? And then I think we can start to take a look at what does that mean? Are there roles in some way, shape, or form for them down the road? The thing I'm excited about is, we have 6 full-time development officers, team maker staff that are going to be able to dedicate their full energy to a lot of these things. And so, I think back in the day before collectives started, if institutions could have taken these in-house where they can control it under one roof and have their staff manage, I think they would have. It didn't unfold that way. And so now we're finally getting there. And we're trying to figure all those things out now. Is there a place or a role, some transition period? And so that'll come here as we go through the summer.
One last thing. You have a couple more minutes to stay on for a bit? Okay. Before we go to break, I've had people ask me this. Do you worry, and I think I've asked you this before, about donating? People will say, well, I want to donate to team makers, but I don't want to do the or I'm going to do the collective in the past sense and maybe not team makers. How do you balance that of trying not to rob Peter to pay Paul, if that makes sense?
Well, I think the consistent message that we've had even the last couple of years, whether it was when we were talking to folks or Jay and Kurt were talking to folks, is our need for team maker support doesn't go away now that we're doing NIL. If anything, it's an addition. And so that was always it isn't an either or, it's hopefully it's an and.
Mm-hmm.
People who are team makers, we need them to continue to be team makers because that supports scholarships and operations and recruiting and all the things that allow us to support our programs at a high level. The NIL, that's a completely new line item for us institutionally. Obviously, the collective is doing that the last couple of years. So really for us, it's about hopefully their support of the Green and Gold Fund and NIL is an addition to what they're to what they're doing. The nice part is if you have folks, and I think it might be maybe half of the folks who have supported the Collect in the past aren't current team makers. If you transition to the Green and Gold Fund, you instantly become a team maker.
Okay.
You accrue priority points, and those donations are tax deductible. So immediately there's some real benefits in addition to just our general team maker benefits that you get. There's going to be some pretty impactful ones that I think people will be excited about.
All right, we'll break here. Much more with Matt Larsen as we chat on NDSU opting into the House settlement. There's a couple other non-House things I want to get to him as well. So we'll do that after the break here as we wrap up our first hour on Hot Mic. Back on WDAY Extra, KSFL in Sioux Falls, KMBN Rapid City. Right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Wrapping up our first hour, back with Bison Athletic Director Matt Larsen, good enough to give us a few more minutes. I got an email. I want you to see if you can answer this. Under this new system, what does the future look like for players like Jake Cava that walk on and don't necessarily become draft picks but are significant contributors as seniors? Mm-hmm. Are those players now Division II players that transfer in later?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I mean, and that's what, when you look at our program and the value that we've had from, we've typically, I would say, again, across probably 5 or 6 sports, we've carried larger rosters than other schools. Yep. And I think we've seen the real benefit of that, whether it's depth, whether it's development, whether it's, to that conversation, walk-ons that come in, earn scholarships and go on and have a lot of success. So those are things that you do worry about a little bit. We will still have, we're not going to get to a point where we're fully scholarshiping 105. So we're going to have those walk-on opportunities, but just not as many as we've had in the past. And when you look at the one thing that I've really struggled with, and I think a lot of places have all along, is the roster cap.
Yep.
And again, I get why at the Power 4 level they think that's important, but I think it takes, we've all talked about this, takes away opportunity. If you have a year where there's a huge rash of injuries in a program and, it sets you up for failure when you don't have the depth. So there's just a lot of pieces to it. So we'll still have those opportunities, but unfortunately not as many as we've had in the past.
Matt, if you had a donor come in and say, and this is hypothetical, hey, I'd like to scholarship 12 more for football to get you to 75. Do you have to go then back to the donor and say, hey, we need 12 more then for women equivalencies? Is that how that would work?
Well, it's interesting you say that because we have a call with we have a Title IX lawyer that we work with every single year on Title IX compliance. And so those are all the questions that we're having now because, how is institutional NIL governed through Title IX? Obviously, scholarships over the history of time have been governed under Title IX. So those are some of the things that we need because I in some way I look at it as, I'm going to use round numbers. This is not, let's say we're going to use $100,000 and we're going to invest it in the softball program. And to me, if you give $100,000 NIL or if you give $100,000 in scholarships, to me, you're investing $100,000 into that program. Should it matter per se? But that's where we need some clarity from our Title IX attorney just to say, okay, hey, how do we manage this? So when our coaches come and say, you know what, I'd rather give this kid a scholarship, there's greater value for them there than giving him the same equivalent NIL. Well, we may or may not be able to do that based on our conversation later this afternoon.
Do you foresee many FCS schools upping scholarship in football? I don't. Do you foresee that?
Again, I look at let's say a school says we're gonna influx $500,000 into our football program.
Right.
So if I do 500,000 NIL or I do 250 in scholarships and 250 in NIL, to me, it's the same impact. So you might see, to me, it comes down to is what's your total level of investment? So we could very much be playing a school that, let's say they're going to invest $250,000 in scholarships and we're doing $500,000 in NIL. We're investing more. We're getting greater bang for our buck. So I think the way we've started to look at it is it's a pool of dollars and how are you investing in your programs based on that pool and how does that compare against your competitors? So that's, and again, this is all evolved. If you just said to me, a month ago, no, nobody's increasing scholarships, but in some ways it may make more sense for some institutions to do it that way. At the end of the day, for us, it's about how are we investing in comparison to our competitors, whether it's scholarships or NIL or you name it.
Two last things for you. I know Kolpak asked you this last week, but you got into this, I'm not going to try and date you here, 3 decades ago, that amateurism is done. It's done. Just give me your thoughts on that.
Well, I it is in terms of this NIL piece, but I still, when I walk the halls of NDSU, and the majority of our student athletes they're here to get an education. They're here to play the sport they love. They're here to be developed. They're here to prepare themselves to be successful in life after they leave. So in a lot of ways, there is still an amateurism component to what we do.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And I always say, I've said for years, we've completely upset the entire apple cart of college athletics for probably 2% of student athletes that compete.
That's about right. Yep.
And so there still is, especially at our level and what we do and how we do things, I do still think there is that amateur component in terms of education through athletics. But there is the reality now of the NIL piece. And so, again, like I said at the press conference, to me, it's for us, we need to be able to continue to balance how are we able to financially support our student athletes in a good way, but also bring in the type of kids that want to get an education, that care about what we do here, that invest in our fan base and our community, and that's going to be the challenge. Again, I think we have the right coaches to do that, and those kids are out there, but it's continuing to find them.
Last thing, it's probably imminent today. The NCAA basketball tournament is going to expand. Give me your 2 cents on, because it's I don't see the Summit League getting 2 bids unless I'm way off on this. Where do you stand on that?
Well, and that's been my philosophy, or my at least thought the last number of years, the way things are going. And you've seen the amount of multi-bids for your non-power basketball leagues cease to exist.
Diminish,
right?
Totally.
And you look at and I think those leagues have to start looking at what's our level of investment versus, basically you're getting 1 bid. So the only thing I worry about, again, I like the idea. Originally, there was thoughts of, hey, do we get to 100 teams? Do we get to, basically, is it an all-comers tournament? And I think the adding 8 additional is probably a fair number. The challenge, I think, again, for leagues, mid-major leagues, is are you essentially just relegated to one of those play-in weekends,
right,
or those play-in games? That's the part that you worry about and you get concerned about. And time will tell a little bit, especially with the new governance structure and how that impacts brackets and seeding and selections and those kinds of things. But that's what I think you worry about a little bit. But going up 8, I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. It'll be more revenue to the NCAA, which then again trickle down more revenue to institutions. So there's some value there. And it's not a huge number that I think is going to make it too big.
I will say the experience in Dayton was they love it. They do. I don't know how they can, but when we went, they made that a huge deal. And I don't know if people understand that they know the tournament starts Thursday at 11 a.m., that it doesn't actually start Tuesday, but we got to see that up close, and they made it a huge deal when we were there.
I agree, and I think that's the challenge. If you can find other locations that'll support it at that level, because I agree that was a great experience. It was a great crowd. It was a fun experience. And at the end of the day, you play in one of those games, you win, you get a unit.
Yeah, you
get a financial unit that comes back to the league, and so there is some value in playing a very winnable game. Now it's daunting the game after when you're going against a top NBA pick, but no, I agree. If they can mirror what's happened at Dayton at other locations, I think that could be a really positive experience.
I know you've done a lot of talking on this. I really appreciate you giving us a few minutes here, and we'll talk soon. Okay.
Great, Dom. Appreciate it. Always good coming on.
Matt Larsen joining us, NDSU Athletic Director, giving us the behind-the-scenes, the ins and outs on the Bison opting into the House settlement. There'll be more questions on this, and I know we'll get Matt on again as he gets the answers as it goes forward here over the next little bit. All right, we'll do for a break. We're caught up here. We'll start hour 2. Our guy Sam Goetzinger will join us. We start our second hour. Also, Cadey Shipman from Minot North about becoming the first Sentinel to be a Division I athlete. Back on our second hour of Hot Mic on this Thursday, we come back.
This is Hot Mike. Hot Mike. On the networks of WDAY. WDAY. Here's Dom Izzo.
Let's take a moment and talk about bunions. The original line read as this: bunions. You may have heard of them. That was my original line.
Hey, thank you, Dom. Johnny Cool Guys there with the sunglasses on.
That was off the dome.
To the west of
when
Illinois.
I'm looking on it, like okay, west. I shouldn't say
west.
right and left. Is that Missouri?
That is Missouri.
Yes.
That is
it's underneath
Missouri.
Iowa.
Way to go.
Oh, I'm getting good at this.
He's coming.
So we're going to like the bottom peninsula region.
Peninsula.
Okay, we're going to come back on the ETSU tailgate and then go to you. How am I going to go from a tailgate to bunions?
Okay, good deal.
Let's take a moment and talk about bunions.
It's never not funny to me. I'm sorry.
I love it. I was thinking about that the other day. I'm excited to get back into the swing of things and see what other interesting stories we can do this year.
Sammy G, I haven't seen you
It's been a
in
while.
person here on the show. I was
It's been
figuring
a while.
out it's almost been a month, man.
Has it really
between us, vacations and all that?
Well,
yeah.
don't get used to it.
Well, you're out of here
I'm
tomorrow.
going to be gone for a while.
Right? You're done tomorrow.
I schedule my vacations all back to back to back to back. So I apologize, but don't get used to it.
So, first off, thank you so much for filling in for me last week.
Yeah.
Seemed like you had a newsy week as well, despite the 4th of July.
Studio's not on fire, so I took that as a win. But, no, it was fun. It was a good time.
You also had you did a little vacation over the 4th last week as well.
I did.
And I hate to report this, you had some travel issues.
I did.
Not as bad as I did.
No.
But you had some own travel issues.
Enough. I will say this. I am a baby deer when it comes to air traveling, especially by myself. I didn't grow up in that world, so I'm not too in
That's
tune
a great
with
description
what's
of
going on.
baby deers.
You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
I totally do.
But I walk
Knowing
in,
you, I totally
walk
that's
into an
accurate.
airport. And, where am I? What is going on? What are these kiosk things? How does that? Whatever happened to the days of just walking up to a desk and getting it figured out there? That's not a thing anymore. But I digress. I didn't have nearly the issues that you had, and so I decided to make the smart decision to make a quick trip over the holiday weekend to go down to see my friend from college who's got a lake place in Arkansas. So I figured everybody's gone. I'm going to do one too.
Got a lake place in Arkansas.
Yeah, I didn't even know they had lakes there, but it's pretty big. And so I decided to go down there. And he was like, I'll get your ticket. Don't worry about it. I'm like, well then definitely I'm going to go.
you're going to do that.
If you're going to buy the ticket, all right. So originally the plan was get done with work, drive home to New Prague, Minnesota, which is a 4-hour drive. That was all smooth.
Okay.
Immediately when I get home, my flight moves from 6 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon.
So from MSP, from Minneapolis to
Dallas.
Dallas. Okay.
And then I was going to go from MSP to Dallas to Little Rock.
Okay.
And it got moved to the complete opposite time of the day. And well, I'm going to miss an entire day. I'm going to be there for, a cup of coffee. And what's the point of this trip? Luckily, we got that part figured out where I moved it from a 6 a.m. flight to a 5 a.m. flight. So the only issue there was instead of an hour layover in Dallas, I had a 2-hour layover, which is like
that's not bad.
That's
No.
not bad.
Honestly, you want that these days.
Well, right. I'm a fan of the layover. I get to, enjoy the fine establishments in the airport. So that was fine with me. So I got to Little Rock. That was all good. Getting there wasn't the issue. Getting back was more of an issue. Monday night I was supposed to get back. I was going to make the marathon trip of getting back late on Monday night, driving up here, being at work on Tuesday.
Okay.
And as the day is going on, we're trying to figure out what are we going to do to kill time in Little Rock, Arkansas, because that's where the airport is, to get me to my flight.
Okay.
And we did enough. And as we were doing these things, we golfed. We went to the Bill Clinton Presidential Library.
Really?
Yeah, we did.
How was that?
It was pretty cool.
I would have checked that out.
It was a pretty neat deal.
Okay.
We spent a couple hours in there because we had nothing else to do.
That's cool.
We went to the Little Rock Central High School, which is a historic high school. We drove around that for a little bit. And finally get to my flight. It's all looking okay. I got to get from Little Rock to Dallas and have about 10 minutes to get to a different terminal and get to my other flight to get to Minneapolis.
This sounds bad to begin with.
And in my head, and everyone's telling me that flight from Dallas to Minneapolis is going to get delayed. Don't worry, it's going to get delayed. You're going to catch it
weather.
Because of weather.
Okay.
They came on and said there's some sort of flow thing in the currents of the sky. I don't know. So I was like, okay,
What?
okay, that's going to get delayed. I'm going to be fine. But then I'm sitting in the Little Rock Airport, which is a horrible airport. It's good for
we're
going to go out there. There's nothing there. There's nothing there. Everything's under
all right.
construction.
How many gates?
21.
Okay, well that's huge compared to Fargo.
1 through 21, and they're all just in a straight row apparently. And I was in gate 1, so that was fine. I didn't have to travel very far. But as I'm sitting there waiting and waiting, my flight from Little Rock to Dallas just keeps on moving back and back and back. I'm going up to the lady because I don't know the procedure here. I'm going up to the ladies at the desk like, hey, can I get on this flight to Dallas? Because I need to catch my flight to Minneapolis.
Right.
And every time, no, get out of my face. I got a million other people to deal with. Okay, that's fine. So I'm waiting in line for 15 minutes each time, and
15 is that's not bad.
Maybe,
that's actually
but
pretty
then
quick.
Each time it's a 5-second conversation where they tell me to get out of here. And it just keeps going back and back and back, and then eventually gets to the point where I'm not leaving Little Rock until my flight in Dallas is supposed to leave in Minneapolis, which did not get delayed, by the way. So there was no chance of making
the flight from Dallas to MSP was on time.
It was on time.
Yeah.
So there was no.
So you missed that.
No chance of making that.
Yeah.
So it ended up being okay. I can get to Dallas. What am I going to do when I get to Dallas? Well, luckily, the friend I was staying with, his girlfriend lives south of Dallas, and I was able to stay on her couch for the night and then Uber up in early morning.
How is I've not been to the Dallas airport.
I'm a fan. It's not. I
know we have a lot of viewers who've been to the Dallas airport because they go to Frisco, and that's how they get there.
Right. It's still.
I've not been through Dallas.
Minneapolis is still my favorite one, and granted, I've been to a handful of airports.
Well, now you got Little Rock to add on there.
In the mix there. It's right up there with Newark on the efficiency stream. But Dallas is fine. I got worried the whole time because apparently to go from Terminal A to B to C, you have to take a Skyline, tram or whatever.
Yep.
And the whole time I'm like, I want to avoid that as much as possible.
Sometimes you can't. Like for us in Dulles, you couldn't. You had to take.
You had to take this train.
It wasn't a tram. It was what they called I don't even know. It was basically a motorized train that got us from one terminal to another, and it was my son thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like that, this is just okay.
If I had
like Minneapolis, MSP has its tram. That's nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
If I had an hour to figure out where it is and how it works, I would have been fine. But the fact that I was only going to have 5 minutes to find it, get on it, and then race to my gate, I wasn't a huge fan of that. But so I didn't have to deal with that, luckily. But besides that, I thought it was fine. I mean, it is a grind to walk from one end to the other. I will say that, but I thought it was a decent enough airport. It's big. It's got plenty of stuff in there to do for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I think I had Auntie Anne's pretzels about 9 times during that trip.
Those are pretty good.
I love them. I'm a pretzel guy, and I love them. So that filled me through my layovers.
Man.
But then it's not like I had anywhere near your issues, but I just lost a day coming back home. I wanted to get back because I wanted to get stuff done before my next trip, which is coming up tomorrow.
You're here for a day and a half, and then you're out of here
and then
again.
I'm gone again, and then just like that, I'm going to be back, and then I'm going to be gone again. So I wanted to get back and do stuff, but I missed that. But so it wasn't horrible, but for me, who doesn't do it often, it was, what is going on? And I learned you don't have to take your shoes off anymore. Yeah. So that was a cherry on top. I still had to take my shoes off.
Yeah, that happened after each of us were done with our flights, because I saw that as well. Jackman didn't have to. Like kids over a certain age, he was grinning ear to ear, like, "Hey, Dad, I don't take my shoes off. You do."
I had to go through each of the scanning machines or whatever, and then they make me go back, take my shoes off because that was the issue, because I must have metal shoes. And
you have to take them off anyway, like beforehand. They didn't tell you. They didn't tell you that.
No, you're good.
Huh?
So. Because isn't that the thing that
it is now? But it just happened like Tuesday.
That's what I thought too. But I guess on Monday,
Tuesday or Wednesday,
Monday in Little Rock, they didn't care, and then but then I had to go back and take them off.
Christmas,
which is a pain.
All right, well, I made a map on Monday, and we couldn't use it, and I thought, well, we didn't have time to use it Monday, but boy, it'd be fun to use it today because you and maps they don't get along. So I wanted to because. As people found out of our travails for our trip, we end up having to drive. So I was curious because Jack was finding out the states that we drove through
Jack
to get
probably
from,
knows more than
from
I do.
Washington, D.C. to
the East
New
Coast,
York
there's
State.
no chance. There's no chance.
So, Kyle, you can go and play it when you can. So we started originally. This was our original flight was Hector to O'Hare, which was delayed 10 hours. 10 hours in Hector.
Did you go home?
No, we couldn't.
I suppose.
They kept moving it every 45 minutes. There's my wife and the jackman. We finally got on the airplane 10 hours later. Then we went from O'Hare to Dulles, which is just outside of Washington, D.C. It's actually in the state of Virginia.
Yeah.
It's in Sterling, Virginia.
I didn't even know. When you texted me and said you were at Dulles, I was telling everybody you were at Doles, and I was like, I've never heard of that before.
So here's the trip. Now, you can't see any states here, so I'm going to try and you can guess as much as you want.
Oh, I need a map.
This is a map.
Well, I need it zoomed out. Zoom out a little bit. Jeez.
So,
okay. So
do you recognize any of those towns that are on there? They give it away. Little Round Top, you should know. That's a very famous Civil War.
Know that?
That's a famous Civil War battleground there.
I know there's a Hanover in Minnesota. So
it is definitely not Minnesota. I can tell you that.
There. York, I'm assuming, is south of New York, so that must mean you're not new. So you went from Virginia, and you went north. So where would that put you? Would that put you in the Carolinas?
No, that's south.
Well, North Carolina.
You can see us. I'm moving us north here. There's Scranton. Have you heard of Scranton?
Yes.
That's Pennsylvania.
Yes. Okay. Well, so then you had to go to Pennsylvania. Did you have to take a right? Did you have to take a right somewhere?
And then keep going north, and then that's all the way. There's Syracuse, New York, right there.
Whoa. Pennsylvania is
so
underneath Syracuse.
Yeah. So how it worked for those that, and this is our final destination there. And then we still, there's my son, conked out finally. Gosh, he was a trooper. So how it goes, you start in Virginia,
okay,
go north into Maryland.
Maryland, yes, but I thought that was further. I thought that was a little bit out of the way.
Maryland goes into Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania's a big-ass state.
So Pennsylvania also is, I thought it was further north. So when you say Pennsylvania, is it that little... I'm going to say it again, peninsula thing, that you had to drive through?
No. That's West Virginia, what you're talking about there.
This country is bigger and also smaller than I think it is every single time.
Yep, but we hit Pennsylvania and then on to New York. So my son now has more street cred than any other 6-year-old I know because he's been to way more states.
He's got more than I
when
do.
I was 6, I hadn't left New York yet. He's been to 10 states already.
When I was 6, I hadn't left New Prague, if that tells you anything, which is, pretty hard to do.
But, yeah, that was our journey, man. So they've got you now here. There you go.
Okay.
Believe me, I wish I could have done the flight. That would have been a heck of a lot easier.
Okay, so I'm thinking I was off to the right,
correct.
Off to the east a little further more. Okay.
Because,
I didn't know Syracuse was over there.
Yeah, that's where we're at.
Huh.
And that's the amazing part, I think, for people that have never been to the East Coast, is that's a great, and I appreciate the guys bringing this up, that you can hit any major city within 3 to 4 hours. Like D.C., we're just south of Philly. Philly, then you're just south of New York. New York, you're just south of Boston. That's just, it's amazing that you could do that. And frankly, I knew once our flight got, we got to go to break here, once our flight got banged that we weren't making it back to Syracuse, that the first, honestly, when the weather started turning, I'm like, well, we could drive this.
Yeah.
It's not ideal.
Yep.
But we could do
6
it.
hours isn't bad, though.
But it turned into 8 with the jackman. He's got to go to the bathroom. Which is still not great, but we did it.
When I look at that map, that's a mess. That just looks like a mess. And trying to navigate all that. So props to you for doing that.
It's the thing of air travel, my man. And when it goes great,
it's fun. I enjoy it.
Right.
But then when there's issues, it's the worst thing in the world.
See, you've only lived now because you got to fly on the company plane,
yes,
or the Bison Charter. That is high.
Show up, get on,
high
and
on the
going.
hog
yes.
as you can get. what you just experienced is what the rest of us go through.
I know.
When we're trying to travel.
I feel like such a snob when I got to tell people. I don't know what's going on.
I don't have to check my bags.
I just
walk right on.
I fly private most of the time. I just show up,
correct,
cram myself into a plane, and it takes
off we
me,
go.
And it
right.
takes me there. Yeah.
All right, let's break. We come back. We got a couple other topics we want to hit with Sam before he's back on vacation.
Yeah.
Are you flying again?
No,
okay, just driving this
We're
time.
We're driving.
Back with Sam Goetzinger on Hot Mic right after this. All right, welcome back, everybody. Back here with Rand McNally. One's Sam Goetzinger. You probably don't know what Rand McNally is.
No.
They make maps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
How would I know who that is?
I'm sure you follow Kyle Potter, who is the editor of Thrifty Traveler. He actually used to work for the Forum. Good dude. I follow him because he writes all about air travel and deals and all that.
Yeah.
He's the Delta CEO told CNBC today the travel demand is slowing among price-sensitive consumers booking economy, which I can understand if they hear my story and your story. For people that are just looking to fly, like, no bleeping way am I doing that anymore.
The whole time I'm thinking, what if I had like a super time-sensitive thing I had to get back to? And there's no way.
Yep.
The flight times are just a suggestion. Like, get here at this point. You may take off about 3 hours from then, but that's how I felt about it. It's nothing quick about it.
The CEO from Delta also says U.S. airlines will cut domestic flights, quote, significantly from mid-August onward, which is interesting because that would attribute to less people are flying if they're going to start cutting flights, which the Forum just had the story, what day is it? Tuesday, that Delta now is going to have a direct flight from Fargo to Atlanta, which is a big deal because Atlanta's a hub. That's what you found out. Like, if you fly, and I know you drive to Minneapolis is a hub, but for that wasn't an option for us, so you got to fly out of Fargo or out of Syracuse. Those aren't hubs. You are totally at the whims of those places of the planes being on time and B, everything being okay with said plane to make it. Because once you get to Minneapolis or Chicago or Atlanta or Newark, then you can go anywhere. That's but if you're in one of those small regional airports like we have here, Jamestown, Sioux Falls, Minot, Grand Forks, boy, unless you got a direct flight of where you're going, and obviously there's more of those popping up every now and then, you better hope everything's on time, because if not, you are donezo.
Totally agree.
Then you're in the meat grinder after that.
And I've told you my travels. I'm a firm believer. If it's a 5-hour flight or a 13-hour drive, I'm taking the 13-hour drive. So I might have to be doing that a little bit more often. But I agree with you.
Man,
you can't really have just a quick weekend and expect to be back. It just doesn't seem like it's going to work that way.
Yeah, and I understand you could get into a car accident, you could have flat tire, whatever, if you're driving. That I understand as well.
Yes,
but it's just,
I totally agree with that.
But when air travel works, my last thing on it, it's fantastic.
Yeah,
you can go across the country in 6 hours. Bam.
Yep.
Awesome.
Totally agree.
And when it doesn't, boy, it
makes
stinks.
for a long day.
Yep.
A long day, long couple of days.
If you're traveling with young kids like I was, man, that makes it even harder.
Yeah,
no doubt about it. All right, so you were our point man on the house settlement that came through.
Yeah.
Do you understand it now after covering
this
it?
Is what I've been telling people, and I spoke with McFeely about it last week and Colpack. I understand it. Explaining it is difficult because it's not something. I've had a couple people ask me, can you give me the 30-second,
you can't do it in 30. I can tell you that.
I mean, you got to block out 10 minutes if you want me to explain this to you.
Yep.
I understand it. Presenting it back is where I find trouble in it. It was an interesting deal last week. I hope it all went okay, and I hope I was correct on everything. But
I think you did a great job.
I appreciate
What
that.
did you get a sense of when you visited with Polsek after on his thoughts on it? Because it seemed to me that Tim has been preparing for this for a little bit.
Yes.
It's not something that this has been on his mind for a while.
Well, and I think that just speaks to the administration over there keeping the coaches in tune and everything, that they've been having conversations about this for months. So it's not like, we opted in, now what do we do?
Right.
That didn't seem like the case. It seemed like he Now that the designation period is kind of come and gone because that deadline was the other day.
It was the 6th. It was Sunday. Yep.
So it seemed like he was trying to figure out what the plan is there. What's the future going to look like moving forward? How is this going to affect scholarships and recruiting and stuff like that? It seemed like they were prepared for it. It still seemed like there were some things that they needed to figure out, which everybody needs to figure out, But it felt like they were in a good spot with their plan of attack on what they wanted to do.
The thing I'm curious on, as a one in news, I'd like to find out who was designated.
Yes.
Like, I would like that information. I don't know if they're going to willingly give that out.
Will we?
That's something I'm working on.
I was under the assumption that we would.
I don't know.
We wouldn't know.
Like, sometimes you have to ask on certain, like, if a guy was a walk-on, or if a player was a walk-on, you have to ask that. I think that's the kind of information. I'm not sure if they're going to be, or if you have to be. I don't know if you have to. I think internally you have to declare it, but I think in the clearinghouse part of it, because if a guy transfers, as Matt Larsen was just telling us,
you carry that tag with you.
Right.
Yes.
So then you'd have to know.
Yeah.
So that's something I'd like to, for the teams that had that designation go, I'd like to know who is under that. I think that's important.
To me, and I'm glad they did a press conference because not everybody's doing a press conference, and they were openly answering questions about that, which I thought was very nice.
Yep.
It seemed like the designation portion of this was bigger than I may have thought it was moving through all of this.
I think for the teams that decided to reverse course at the last minute, UND being one of them, Montana was one of them, that was a big deal, I think, in finding that out. Yep,
yeah,
absolutely.
I will be curious to see who's on that list.
I would too. Like for hockey at UND, is there who got put on that?
Yeah.
If there for football at NDSU, I'd like to know. Just I think because if said player decides to leave, because the portal is open now. There's a one-time window now for players that were designated under this. They can transfer anywhere for the next month.
To me, it feels like with all this, the designation tag in there too, I'm sure some people will get and to me, I think this is the wrong way to look at it, that if you're designated, well, then you weren't good enough to make the team. I don't
that's
believe
not
that. The way to
No.
look at that.
No.
It's an eligibility thing when you come down. And it's more so just the time you're coming into college athletics, and if you're put on a designation tab, that doesn't mean that you're not good enough to be on this team. It just means the eligibility part is where they got to figure out. Am I looking at that correctly?
No, I think that's accurate.
Okay.
Yeah. Email comes in. This is unrelated because they know you're a hockey guy. Sam, why have the Wild not signed Kirill Kaprizov yet, and how big a deal was it trading for Tarasenko?
I thought it was a huge deal. You get him a Russian counterpart in there, and we had.
But is he still on the roster?
Who?
Kaprizov. Like, he hasn't signed yet.
Well, no, I'm going to the Tarasenko part. I thought that was a big deal, getting him in low risk, high reward potential there.
Okay.
I don't know what they're doing, dragging their feet on this for.
It's not good.
You want this guy around.
No.
There's no doubt about that. I thought it would move a little quicker.
Correct. I thought
this year.
by the 4th of July we'd have something.
I thought we'd have this figured out by now. So
the longer it goes, the more worried I would be. Correct?
I agree.
Yeah.
But then you also get it sounds like he loves it in Minnesota, at least the conversation that he had with Tarasenko. That could be a smoke and mirror.
What year was it? A couple years ago that he went? They couldn't get him out of Russia. Remember that?
Yeah, that was a couple of years back.
That whole debacle there. I mean, he's a phenomenal player.
It doesn't sound like he loves it, but it sounds like he's having a good enough time where he will speak highly of the organization to Tarasenko, who's coming in.
Right. He's a phenomenal player.
Absolutely. He's one of the league's best.
Figure it out.
You got a guy to that caliber, and the Wolves have done it. They got a guy they want. They're going to expend all resources to try to get him. And I would love to see the Wild do that because this is not a guy you want to see leave.
No.
Yeah.
Minnesota's had that often with guys go on and leave and become even bigger stars.
Just be phenomenal players. So I would hope they keep them around.
All right, my man. Have a great vacation. I hope your travel goes even better.
I hope my 3-hour car ride to Wisconsin isn't too bad. Doesn't get delayed.
Wisconsin, huh? That's
yeah, Hayward, Lacoudere.
Okay.
So it should be fun.
Have fun, and we'll talk soon, okay?
Absolutely.
Sam Goetzinger joining us on this Thursday morning. We'll break. We come back. You'll meet one of the top softball players in the state and the first Minot North Division I athlete. Cadey Shipman will join us when Hot Mike returns. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Hot Mike rolls on a beautiful Thursday morning. Going to be a bit sticky out there. We got some storms maybe blowing through. News is coming up at the top of the hour. Storm Tracker meteorologist gives you all the updates on that coming up in about 25 minutes or so. I'm really pumped to have our next guest on because I neglected this, and we got just crazy in November with the obviously we have going on. That's no excuse because we've highlighted other schools that have got their first D1 commitments, whether it be West Fargo Cheyenne or Horace or Legacy. Minot North, which has not been open all that long, all of 2 years, has its first Division I athlete in softball standout, Cadey Shipman, who in November signed to go play softball for Darren Mueller and North Dakota State. And she joins us this morning, fresh off the softball diamond and in the midst of her summer softball season. It's great to see you. Congratulations. I know this is a while ago since you signed in November, so I'm going to ask you about emotions from 7-8 months ago. But to be the first, that your name is going to be there forever with Minot North. What's that mean to you?
I mean, it's an honor. I mean, for Minot North, I've been the first for a lot of things there. First graduating class, first grad speaker, first signee. I mean, the list goes on and on. I've had a lot of experience there. But it's been an honor just to be the first there. And the emotions, I mean, it's been a long time. But signing with NDSU has been kind of a dream come true because, I mean, North Dakota girls, we don't really get a chance there, especially in the softball world since fast pitch hasn't been around for a long time here. And so just being one of those people that gets to go to the next level, especially a high level like Division I, it's truly been a blessing.
When was you've done every sport? When did softball become, hey, I'm okay at this? When did that set itself apart for you that this is something you wanted to go down that road?
So I'm a little weird. I started playing softball about 4 years ago. So I started playing my 8th, 9th grade year, and I picked it up brand new. Like, I played soccer my whole life because everyone plays soccer here. Like, dude, you just got to play it. And so when I made that switch, I mean, my freshman year, it was kind of a grind because I was just like, I'm not that great, but I mean, it was really fun. And then I just kept going with it and sticking with it and played travel ball with Storm and met all the girls, and just all of that kind of helped me along the way. And all the facilities that Thor has provided for me and all the stuff like that. I mean, I've really put in a lot of work, and I've realized that with softball, I really enjoy the process of learning with it and actually practicing, because in a softball game, you could get maybe one ball hit at you, and then you won't get another one, so you have to really enjoy the learning process and actually practicing to go and compete at the collegiate level. And so I think that's kind of where it clicked for me, is just I actually like doing the little things, not actually really being in the game. I mean, I love being in the game, but I mean, I love doing the little things too. And with volleyball and basketball, I love being in the games, but I didn't really like doing the little things.
That's amazing. You've only been doing this for 4 years. I mean, just think about that and how that's not a long time period to have this kind of success. What was it natural to just stuff come to you I can do this and it's easy for me to do?
I mean, some of it definitely did come natural. I like the catching part and the hitting, but I mean, a lot of it was just I've spent a lot of time in the cages, and I mean a lot of time. I can't count how many, it wouldn't even matter, after games, if I didn't hit very well, I would be in the cages right after a game, whether it was 9 p.m. or 12, wherever, I would be in the cages hitting because of, I love the process of it and just learning. So I've spent a lot of time on this, just trying to master my craft. And yeah, I think, yes, it did come naturally, but also it was a lot of hard work to get here.
When did NDSU come into the picture?
So it was around the end of my junior year of high school where I decided, maybe I do want to play college softball. And so I was kind of in the recruiting process there and went to a couple of camps. And I only went to about 4 camps, and one of them was NDSU. And the difference between the NDSU camp and all the rest of the camps is that, I got some interest from all the other camps that I went to, but I don't know, like people say it's kind of cliche and corny, but like they say like when you know,
Yeah.
and like when I was there, it just like it felt right. Like all the girls were really nice. It did help that I performed pretty well, but I talked to the coaches a lot because there was kind of a mishap. I was at a camp the day before, and a girl asked me if I could catch for her because they said that they needed catchers for each pitcher, and she didn't bring a catcher, and she's from Canada. And I was like, well, I'm already going to be there for the afternoon part. Might as well just go and catch for you. Like, and I'm already here. Like, I'm from North Dakota. Like, it's really no sweat off my back. I have my gear. So I went. And that morning, turns out you didn't need to bring your own catcher. And so then I kind of just like sat there, like was in the dugout just talking to the coaches. And so I had a really good talk with one of the assistant coaches, Juju, and then got to talk to Darren for a little bit. And so, yeah, the whole camp, it just kind of felt right to me.
Did they offer you there, or did that come later?
No, that came later. So I performed pretty well. Like we did like hitting stations and we were doing like front toss, and I was just like I was cranking them. Like the bat was hot. And they weren't really paying attention to anyone until I came up to hit and I started cranking them, and then they actually turned and like came up to me in the dugout, were asking questions where I was from. And then that was kind of just that. And then after on the ride home, like, I didn't really think much of it because, like, to me, like, I never really thought I was good enough for D1, especially starting so late. Like, I didn't think anyone would really take a chance on that. And I was in the car with my dad on the way home, and like my dad was telling me, he was like, yeah, they were looking at you. I was like, you really think they're interested? And he was like, yeah. And so then I emailed Darren, just kind of shot my shot, and I was like, dude, I'm the hardest working kid you'll ever meet, this and that, like just kind of shooting my shot.
Yeah.
And then he actually responded to me like a day later, and I remember I got the response like on my way home from school. And I know you're not supposed to text while drive, but I like looked at my phone and I saw the notification that I got an email back. And I like, mind you, I live like 2 minutes away from the school. I got home in 1 minute because I was speeding all the way back. I was like, Dad, like I ran in, he's like in the middle of like a work meeting. I'm like, Dad, like he emailed me back, like. And so then he asked for a phone call, and then on the phone call we talked for a little bit, and then he was like, got to a little bit like know me a little bit more, and he didn't want to jump the gun, but he was like I have a really good feeling about this. And then they invited me for a visit, and then rest is history.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's a great story. Just that you're in the middle of it because you're playing summer softball. I want to ask about that here in a second, but have you had a chance just to sit like, wow, this has all happened in 4 years?
Yeah, I mean, I think about it a lot. Like it all kind of meshes together. Like I don't realize, like sometimes I don't give myself like I am very hard on myself. Like but I think that's one of the reasons I've been so successful is I hold myself to a high standard. But like I don't give myself enough slack because I'm like, man, I should be hitting this girl, like she's pitching 60, like this and that. But I'm like, wait, I started 4 years ago, like all these girls, they've been like, I teach these youth camps. Like I was just teaching a youth camp. Some of these girls have been playing longer than I have. And they're like, like we're in the same boat, so I don't give myself enough credit sometimes. But yeah, it all kind of does just mesh together.
For those that don't know, Cadey, tell us about the Northwoods Softball League. I think obviously people know about baseball. The softball league, how many teams there are, and what that's been like for this last little bit you've been doing that?
So it's pretty brand new. They started it last year. Last year there was 4 teams, including the Honeybees, and then this year there's 5 teams. They just added a team from Wausau, Wisconsin.
Okay.
So last year I got to see the Honeybees. I got to watch them. I didn't get to play because you can't play unless you're in college or just graduated.
Yeah.
But I got the chance to scrimmage them last year when I played the first Storm. We got to scrimmage them and stuff. So that's the first time I saw them, and I thought it was a pretty cool idea to just have college players playing. But yeah, so the Northwoods League, there's 5 teams. There's one from Minot, one from Mankato, one from Madison, Wisconsin, La Crosse, Wisconsin, and then the newest, Wausau. It's a bit of a grind. We got to travel a lot for these games, especially being from Minot.
Yeah.
Everyone else in Wisconsin, they're like 3 to 4 hours away. Even Mankato, because Mankato's like right on the border.
Yep.
Like they have to travel like 3 to 4 hours. They don't even have to stay in hotel rooms. They just go home that day and then come back the next day. For us, we got 13-hour bus rides, which most of the trips end with overnighters, and so I'm so glad that our team has a team chiropractor because my back would definitely be hurting a lot more than it does right now.
That's fantastic. We got to roll. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you doing this on short notice. What do we not know, or maybe people don't understand, and you're now being a Division I commit from North Dakota, the level of softball that's being played here, that there are Division I softball players in North Dakota.
I think a lot of college coaches kind of overlook North Dakota. Like, even being to some of the camps that I've been to, I've been kind of underlooked because I am from North Dakota. But I think it's a great opportunity for me to be able to play at the next level, to kind of just show everyone that, North Dakota girls can do it too. And, like, even if my skills aren't up to par as the other recruits, like, I have total faith in my work ethic to be able to catch up to them and even surpass some of them. So, like, it's just a great opportunity to show that we can do it too.
This was fantastic, Cadey. Thanks so much for this. Congratulations. Enjoy the rest of your so-called summer. I look forward to meeting you in person when you get down here in a couple months, okay?
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Cadey Shipman from Minot North. She plays for the Minot Honeybees of the Northwoods Summer Softball League, and she's committed. She'll be playing base or softball for the Bison beginning this fall. We'll look forward to seeing her on the Bison roster next spring. That was good stuff. We'll take our final break. We'll come back. We'll wrap things up. Get you ready. We got a busy Sports Thursday on top. Hot Mike, we'll do that when we wrap up right after this. Okay, wrapping things up on a busy Thursday program. Tomorrow, I believe Corey Provis is going to join us. Minnesota Twins play-by-play guy, getting ready for the big one tomorrow night. Got Joe Ryan, Paul Skeens tomorrow to start that series with the Pirates. That'll be coming up on our program tomorrow. A couple other fun things to get us into the weekend. Just a few summer weekends left without football, and then it all gets going. So that'll be coming up on the show tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Okay, so we talked about it yesterday. I guess if we don't hear anything today from the Division I Men's Basketball Committee, that might mean that we're not going to expand the tournament. But everything is still pointing to that. And, of course, if that happens, we will have the appropriate guests to come on the show tomorrow to chat about that. So we're waiting potentially on that news. Couple other golf notes to mention as we're a week out from the Open Championship. That begins a week from today in, I believe, Northern Ireland. Royal Portrush is the site of the Open this year. The Scottish Open is underway. Our guy Tom Hoagie is playing in that event. First event in a couple weeks for Tom. I think the last time he was out was playing at the Travelers Championship, which was, now 3 weeks ago. It was the same weekend as the Red River Am when we were over at Moorhead Country Club. He's currently 1 over through 12 holes. He made the weekend at the Open last year for the first time. I don't know if this is his favorite kind of golf, but he's currently +1. He's 7 shots back. The leaders are at 6 under par. That's going on there. Meanwhile, let's see. Wimbledon, you got one, I believe, finalist on the women's side is through. The top-ranked player, Arina Sabalenka, got beat by Amanda Anisimova is on. She wins in 3 sets, 6-4, 4-6-4. So an American will be in the final, first Grand Slam final. That'll be Saturday morning. 13th seed, born in New Jersey, grew up in Florida, and she'll be playing for the Wimbledon Championship coming up on Saturday. The men's semis are tomorrow over at the All England Club to wrap up the third major of the tennis calendar. And with that, that's probably a perfect segue to give us some what to watch before we get out of here. All right, we got a good sports day coming up. Cubs and Twins at noon from Target Field on Twins.tv to wrap up that 3-game set. Twins are going for the sweep. See if they can get it with Chris Paddock on the mound. I mentioned the Lynx are playing another matinee today, 2 o'clock on FanDuel Sports North as they take on the Sparks, try to get rid of the bad taste they had from yesterday where they blew that game in the fourth quarter to Phoenix. And as I mentioned, Wimbledon, the second women's semifinal is underway on ESPN. I believe the mixed doubles championship is going on as well. You can check that out on ESPN as well. Also, we've got NBA Summer League officially starting today. Grant Nelson and Brooklyn play later today. Jackson Money and San Antonio play tonight. Any of those guys play, we'll have the highlights on Hot Mic coming up tomorrow. We got to roll. Thanks to our guests today, to Cadey Shipman, to Sam Goetzinger, and to Matt Larsen. If you missed any of the show, you can podcast it later today at inforum.com. You can watch a full replay on WDAY+. Everybody have a great Thursday. Get out there and enjoy the beautiful weather. We'll see you back here tomorrow for Wrap Up the Week. Thanks for watching, everybody.